I was born ready.
You're born ready.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's just see what everybody has to think about that.
Yeah, I knew you were already recording. No, you turned the computer away from me.
I didn't mean to turn the computer away from you. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hello. I'm going to be filling in the moment because Stephanie decided to start this episode by eating a cookie.
It's a good cookie. My mom sent it to me, or to us.
Oh, well, considering we've been trying to watch our calories, I think that cookie looks like something wicked.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Jeff. And this is I'll start the intro so you can eat your cookie.
Mm-hmm.
That thing is thick.
Uh-huh.
It has a lot of chocolate in it.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you. No, you have a cookie.
Mm-hmm.
The other cookie's for me, at least ideally it is.
Okay.
We'll see if it stays around long enough for me to have it. But this is not a podcast about cookies. We are together, and we are both watching and rewatching our favorite shows. So we're currently watching Supernatural, which I've never seen before. And Stephanie has seen it so much that she has a hard time not quoting every single episode. I, on the other hand, am a huge Trekkie, and Stephanie has never seen it before. And so we're going to... Yeah, you've seen 2 seasons out of a lot. So we are doing trade-offs, season for season. And the other really fun part about this whole adventure is that Stephanie works in the TV and film industry, which gives us some very interesting insights and gives us the ability to answer questions. And hopefully she's going to tie into some connections to get some people out here for some special guest interviews.
Yeah, don't hold your breath on that one. But anyway, today we watched Something Wicked, Season 1, Episode 18.
Mm-hmm.
Original air date April 6, 2006.
The good old days.
Written by Daniel Knopf or Kunoff? Not sure. Directed by Whitney Rancic. And the summary is Sam and Dean investigate a small town in Wisconsin where children are falling into comas for no apparent reason. The brothers discover that a witch is creeping into the bedrooms of the children and stealing their life force. While battling the witch, called a striga, by the way, Dean recalls a past mistake that almost cost Sam his life at the hands of the very same witch, an event which has fueled Dean's protectiveness over Sam and his blind obedience to his father, Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
The one and only.
Yes. Okay, so I thought this was going to be in your top 3, but you said it isn't, so explain yourself.
Well, my favorites have to instantly match Stephanie's favorites. We've learned off of this one. No, I mean, I get it. It's a good one, but it didn't check the boxes for me, and it did hit a lot of the things. Like, as soon as we finish the episode, she just turns and stares at me. She's like, okay, well, like, but we're going to talk about it. No, I need to know.
I said yes or no. That's all I said.
Same difference. But it was, I mean, it was fine.
Fine?
It was fine.
I love this episode. So
I
this
know
episode that we flash back
Yeah,
and
that's
see
true.
them when they're
Yeah.
kids. You get to see Dean's history and Sam's history.
Mhm.
You get to see the dynamic between them and their father when they're younger. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan is in it.
Yep.
And the monster of the week, so to speak, is a pretty cool one. I like the striga.
Yeah, the Striga was cool. The Striga it's always interesting when it's not a new one, but a more obscure, like not near as popular, like Bloody Mary type thing. So I like that a lot.
Plus you get I lost my train of thought. Some brotherly moments in there as well,
Right.
which I always really enjoy. I don't know. What else could you need from an episode?
I think maybe and obviously we need some time to to process this. But there was no suspense, I guess. This was the first one, and I had a tiny little tinge of a moment of, oh no, I know what's coming. And there was a little bit of an episodic framework that it started to fit into. And maybe that's what it was. Maybe it just didn't really have any intrigue for me.
But you got to see them when they were kids.
Yeah, flashback.
And you got to see Dean's trauma.
One little bit of Dean's trauma. I am positive there's more of that. But I mean, I knew we found the monster. They had the remedy. The remedy was too early. It was too easy. So I knew that the remedy wasn't going to work. It didn't. The old lady in the hospital, I want to talk about her. She was very funny. But then, they set up the sting. It's going to work because it worked with Bloody Mary. It worked with the lake monster kid. It always works. When they set up the sting, it always works. Especially after this amount of time. And then monster dies. And if I thought, okay, we're going into the closeout scene. This is the one where they say goodbye to our removable characters. And that's exactly what happened. They drove away. And then Sam and Dean drive off into the sunset of Wisconsin, and it's over. Done. Nice little bow. I don't know, and I'm not dogging on it. You're looking at me like I've offended you. I'm very sorry about that.
Yeah.
It just, I mean, I like the JDM part, although it was very, very short. We didn't get near enough time with him.
3 scenes.
Yeah. 3 short scenes. And we did get to see him fight. I did like that part. And yeah, the Dean story, we actually got some more information on Dean. So it did check that box. Like from an overarching progression of the show, it was good. It gave me some good information. But as far as like toward the end of Home, toward the end of some of these other ones, I have been sucked into the story. And I don't think this story really it didn't pull me in and keep me there.
Who are you?
Oh, come on.
You're a heathen.
Why do you like it so much?
For all the reasons I've already listed. You get the first flashback.
Yeah, the first flashback is pretty cool.
When they're kids, and you get to see like a glimpse into how they were raised. They were left in hotel rooms to fend for themselves and just having cereal and whatever can be hooked up or cooked up in a pot on a little, what are those called? A hot plate.
Spaghettios.
Spaghettios, exactly. And the type of pressure that Dean was put under. I mean, There was zero forgiveness for the fact that he was probably, I don't know, Sam looked maybe like 6, so Dean was about maybe 10 or so.
Yeah, I'd say around there. Dean's right at the age where he could potentially be the babysitter.
I think they said it was like 16, 17 years ago, and Dean is 26, 27.
Okay.
So yeah, so he was about 10. And just, his dad immediately turned on him and was just like, what happened? And, he just, and he said, it was just for a second. I'm sorry. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
Well, but it was like I couldn't quite tell. Or we're just gonna jump into that. Like that seems like one of the cooler bits of this is.
Okay, to set the stage. So the striga, for those who haven't watched the episode in a while. The striga comes in the middle of the night and will suck the life force out of children. And it usually makes its way through families, siblings.
Yeah.
And their dad was hunting it 16, 17 years ago, left Dean in charge in this shitty hotel room over his brother. And they've been there
3 days.
3 days, climbing the walls, just itching to get out. So he goes out. Sam's already asleep in the bed. He goes out. He goes to this arcade that's in the lobby, or not lobby, but the main thing of the hotel. It's a motel. So he's playing video games for a little bit. And then he comes back and he discovers there's something in the room with Sam. And he's about to pull the trigger on this thing. But then Dad rushes in, sort of saves the day because the thing didn't die, but did save Sam. And he's coddling Sam, comforting him, making sure he's okay. He's very upset, and he just turns on Dean, and he's just like, what happened? And then he said, I went out for a sec. He said, what? Mm-hmm. I told you to never leave this room. Or I told, and he said, it was just for a second. I'm sorry. And there's no forgiveness. There's no understanding. There's no empathy. There's nothing. There's just cold, hard. You disobeyed a direct order, and as if Dean is actually just a soldier, not his 10-year-old son.
Yeah.
And then flashback to Dean, current Dean, telling Sam about it, and you see now Dean in, current days, and he said, we never talked about it again. I didn't ask, but he looked at me different after that, and that was worse. And his brother Sam tried to say, you were just a kid. He said no. He's like, don't.
Yeah, he's like, don't do that.
And he said, I don't even blame him. The dad, I don't blame him. I disobeyed an order, and I almost got you killed, as if like he wasn't just a kid,
Yeah, but I mean, they did do that multiple times in this episode too, and that was the thought that I had as well. Like as soon as all this happened, because I got where to kick off with that. I feel like I just introduced 3 different ideas at the same time. He was left in a hotel for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
With no message, no communication, no anything. It's like, here's the protocol.
Uh-huh.
Don't even answer the phone. Don't do anything to entertain yourself other than watch TV, which, by the way, you guys get to split the one TV. I'm giving you a 4-day ration from the camping supplies, and have fun. And then disappears for 3 days. You get TikToks made about you now if you do that kind of stuff. But he shut off JDM whenever the kids, he's like, hey, it was just for a second. I'm sorry. And I saw a conversion in that moment. Like, yes, there was no feedback given. He didn't say anything to him. But the thing that I picked up on that was that it was like he snapped back out of it. He was originally in, I served, I gave orders were violated, and it was like his face kind of cleansed as soon as he realized again that this is his 10-year-old kid, not a soldier. And then he went back to comforting Sam instead of dealing with the moment with Dean. So I saw it a little bit different, but I would maybe say that my theory isn't near as good because they never came back and talked about it. But of course, Dean learned this from somebody. He probably learned that from his dad, and we've dogged Emma over and over again about that.
Yeah, I didn't see that moment you're talking about in JDM's face, in Dad's face. I did see poor little Dean's face just kind of breaking into a million pieces of just like complete and utter like disappointed in himself, disappointed in the fact that his dad is disappointed in him. He almost got his brother killed, who regardless of climbing at the walls or whatever, he has a very, very deep love and protectiveness over his brother, despite the fact that he could have gone the other way. It could have been resentment of like, I gotta take care of this kid, and he wanted Spaghettios, but now he doesn't want them, and so now I don't get to have Lucky Charms. Like, he really is altruistic in how he sees and takes care of his brother, which is kind of remarkable for that age. He could have easily gone the other way, but I think I didn't see that moment that you were talking about. I just saw his dad concerned for Sam and coming down on Dean for disobeying orders.
Yeah, and maybe you're right. I'm not. Remember, this is fresh territory for me, so yeah. I'm still in the reactive portion. But yeah, Dean is between a rock and a hard place, and we've seen a whole lot of that between them. Because Sam and John, Sam and John have both very, very strong personalities, and he's in between them a bit in some confused roles, I would say. He doesn't just get to be the big brother, but also big brother in his case has a caretaker sense.
He's the mom.
To it. Oh yeah, he's the mom. Which is confusing. Which can definitely be confusing. And he never had any kind of outlet to let go of that, or to have somebody say, hey, do you realize that being a big brother is not necessarily the same as being the mother? It's not being the one who takes care of the house. It's not being the guardian of your little brother. It's not necessarily has to be.
And having to continually sacrifice for them. Because parents sacrifice for their kids. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the role of a sibling to consistently sacrifice for your other sibling. Like, sure, you can. Anybody can sacrifice for anybody, but I wouldn't necessarily think like automatically if someone says, "Oh, do parents sacrifice for their kids?" Yes. Do siblings sacrifice for each other? I'd be like, well, they can. Like it's almost the role of a parent to sacrifice for their children, as opposed to, I wouldn't say it's the role of a sibling.
Right. They can choose to.
Yes, and they often do. But I think that Dean has it in his head that the way that his sibling relationship to Dean is take care of his brother and sacrifice for, and if that means sacrifice for him, then he will gladly do it. And so far as we've seen, without resentment, not like, I've done so much for you and I deserve this. You need to be nicer to me, or you need to treat me better, or whatever. It's almost like it's just ingrained. Like, this is just what I do.
Exactly. And he sacrifices for his brother, doesn't really feel like he has a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And also obeys all the orders from his father.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really have a choice. He never really gets to be a kid.
Mm-hmm.
He never got to go to school and do the kid stuff. And that is, I stick with that. He's between a rock and a hard place, and he always has been. He knows no other way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate, because now you've got a grown-ass man who cannot decipher, or understand, or communicate his feelings, refuses to even talk about it.
Kill me now.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that was a good pull it back in. A character pull it back in, because we're getting a whole lot of Dean unpacking here, but we're not doing a session over it. Mm-hmm. This is not a therapy session. This is still Dean being Dean, so we need to have that tying it back into the brand,
the no chick flick
type
moment
thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sam, when they're surveilling the kid, because they set up a bait situation, the brother, who's next in line to be attacked by the striga, they use him as bait, and so they're watching with a night vision camera to see when it comes in. And while they're sitting there for hours waiting, Sam says, "Hey Dean, I've given you a lot of crap for always following Dad's orders, but I get it," which I think is really kind and big of Sam. And Dean just says, "Oh, kill me now."
Yep.
Like, am I gonna get stuck here for the next however many hours listening to this and having to forced to talk?
Well, and it's already 3:00 in the morning at this point too.
Yeah.
So we got to do the Dean deep dives, and it was good. It was good. That part, I really enjoyed it, and we got more about it. And I was doing the first few episodes of this season complaining that we keep not getting anything about Dean. So we got to do a deep dive. Also did get to hear he's a philosopher. I'm the oldest, which means I'm always right. I mean, that is... This is some genius truth bombs that he's getting to drop.
Yeah, no.
So I appreciate the gospel being proclaimed.
I did appreciate that Sam thought about it for a second. He goes, "No, it doesn't." And then Dean's like, "Yeah, totally." And then Sam kind of ignores him, and Dean kind of looks over like, "Did it work? Did he buy it?" No, spoiler, he didn't buy it. He just was not entertaining the ridiculous thought that because I'm older, it means I'm right.
Well, that just means he's got more maturity to come into as a character.
Well, Sam did say that Dean was getting wise in his old age. His ripe old age of 27.
Mm-hmm. Never ends. But, I mean, the oldest is always right.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Obviously.
I think your brother would beg to differ on that one. And I know I certainly would beg to differ as well. Okay,
so then the piece about the dynamics between the two, and they're always playing into it. We get to see, I forget which episode it was, but the crotch shots, and just they're always screwing with each other. Mm-hmm. Always. But then you get Dean the cool, Dean the steady hand, finishes taking out the streaker. Striga. Okay, not the streaker, the striga. All right, so takes out the striga. Dean's still laying on the ground. And first thing out of his mouth, the first thing he checks, "You okay, little brother?" Mm-hmm. That character recognition, no matter how much their dynamics may move around and they'll call each other different things, a lot of different things. But then at that moment, you've got Steady Hand Dean. That's first thing on his mind. Mm-hmm. Don't check on the kid. Striga's already gone down twice at this point, so we'll check on him in a minute. But then he calls him little brother.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even Sam. And it makes me think about the Metamorphosis episode, the shapeshifter.
Yeah.
That was his panic too. It's about his brother.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be cool and calm and steady, but then something threatens his brother, and then the entire game board has changed.
Mm-hmm.
There are no rules in this version. And it's like he snapped back into that for a minute.
Yeah, if Dean is anything in this world, if he is one singular thing in this world, it is protective older brother.
Yeah.
Like, throw anything else out, and that is who he is at his core, and that is a lot of what makes him who he is, and it is always going to take precedence over anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Sam's not safe, nothing else it matters. Like, we're trying to get this bad guy, but if Sam's in peril, I'm going after Sam. This bad guy, it doesn't matter anymore. It's about Sam.
He was ready to drop an old woman just to protect his little brother.
Well, and obviously they played into the big brother, little brother thing a little bit as well, because of course they're paralleling our brothers to the young, Asher and Michael, who played the young children, that they were helping in this episode.
Right.
Like Sam and Dean, Asher, who's the little brother, and Michael, they have a single mom who, has to kind of leave them on their own a lot because she's running this hotel. And so Michael has to take care of his little brother a lot.
Well, and Michael also has these adult responsibilities.
Mm-hmm. Just like Dean.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So they did tie a hold, and they barely gave us anything of Asher.
Yeah, no, Asher had no lines.
No, Asher had no lines. Asher drinks milk. I think that's about.
And Asher lays in a hospital bed.
And Asher lays in hospital beds while he's unconscious. I think that's the entire character. I think that's the whole Wikipedia page for this one. But yeah, the parallels, they gave us a lot of Dean by doing it that way, by connecting a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
But how does this play into your brothers? You have bookmarks.
I mean,
brothers.
My brothers are really far apart. They're 10 years apart. So it's a little different, I think, when you have an age gap like that. And they, as far as I have experienced them, have never been like that. I mean, my older brother is also not the kind of stereotypical older brother in terms of, a lot of times you think of older brothers are protective, and, they feel like they're kind of the parent, the third parent or second, depending on your situation, of the youngers. And that's really just never been my experience. Or I should say I can't really necessarily speak for my little brother, but, he babysat a little bit when we were younger, but, that's not really the dynamic. And part of it is I have two parents, and my mom was a teacher, so she was home with us, during the summer, and then also home at a, earlier-ish hour.
Pretty similar to school hours, right?
Yeah, she wasn't getting home at 7 o'clock usually. She's getting home at 5 maybe, or whatever, picking us up for after-school programs. So there wasn't a lot of reliance on my older brother to take care of me or my littlest brother.
Mm-hmm.
And my littlest, as if I have to, my little brother. But
ironically, the taller.
Yeah, he is. I call him my little big brother because he's so big.
He's so. I mean, he scrapes clouds when he walks through doors.
What do you say? He's like 6'20" or something.
Mm-hmm. Easily.
Actually 6'5". And in my family that's tall, but he's not monstrous by any means, because everybody else is in that range as well.
But that means you've got a 7-year gap on him, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have an elder I mean, you're obviously not the oldest, but do you have an older type of dynamic with him? It's a bigger gap.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we were younger, I think I was put in charge of, as far as I recollect, I was put in charge of Sean, my little brother, a little more than Adam, because I think Adam had more outside. He was so much older that he had other things he was doing.
He had picked up some more responsibilities and such.
Not every responsibilities, but
really?
like, friends and after school things, and he was in high school by the time Sean was,
Yeah, walking.
yeah. That's actually funny. We have a whole joke about Sean's walking. But but I think that given that I was, around 10, 11 or whatever, which is when you can kind of start watching younger siblings, I think. And Sean's like, 3 or whatever. My older brother's in high school, and, after school has practice and all these other things. So I think that, not that I felt burdened by taking care of him, like it didn't feel overly so, but I think that because of just where we were in ages, I probably did a little bit more babysitting than my older brother did.
That tracks.
But it wasn't a lot. I don't remember it being like, I don't remember ever feeling like, oh, I have to, like, I wanted to do this instead or anything like that. I think my parents did a good job of not relying on us kids as third parents.
So whenever you say, I'm really curious about this because we did some pretty significant differences in our upbringing.
Yeah,
but
yours is more relevant.
Yeah, when you say it, well, yeah, that's fair too. When you say it wasn't a lot, ballpark. Give me a ballpark of what your average babysitting was. Like, are you talking like once a week or like once a year?
Oh, I won't. I mean, the only thing I don't really recall many times where it was specifically like mom and dad are going somewhere, Stephanie, you're going to stay with Sean. I do think that it was pretty frequent that after school until mom gets home, maybe I'm watching Sean, but it's not necessarily like watching him in terms of like actual babysitting. It's just I'm someone that has a little bit more experience in the world is around in case someone needs to call 911, like we did our separate things. I watched TV here, he was over there playing video games, whatever. It was just more someone's home than it is really babysitting. So honestly, if you're talking about like true and real babysitting, a handful of times in my entire life, like. And we are also lucky that our elementary school had an after school program. And I think that Sean must have been enrolled it too, but they just went there for, a couple hours until mom could come and pick us up. Like, I know I went there a lot, and Sean probably went there too until they felt, I don't know. There must have been a certain age threshold of like, okay, Stephanie will be home or Adam will be home. Sean can walk home instead of going to the after school program.
Right.
But I think just where we were, there was a lot of resources available to us, like an after-school program. Not every school has after-school programs. Right. And I'm sure they probably paid a little bit of money for it, but I doubt it was like a daycare type expense.
Yeah, I think ours was, it was almost like co-op pricing. It was significantly cheaper.
But yeah, no, I don't have the greatest memory, but in terms of like actual, like, Stephanie, this is your thing doing tonight, you're watching Sean, I think handful of times, like not very many. It just wasn't my experience. My parents did. Not only did my parents do a good job of it, but they had the resources and ability to make it so. Not everybody has that. So I think I was lucky, and my family was lucky for it to be that way. But honestly, none of this, we shouldn't even be talking about my family. We should be talking about yours, because yours is much more relevant to the story we just watched. So
we've got our own little Sam and Dean arrangement.
So go.
Well,
not only is it more relevant, but the age gap is almost exact as well.
Is it?
Well, they're 4 years, you're 3 years, but
2.5. Depends on how you split the hairs. It was like 2, 4. We did the math on this one. 2, 5. and a week, 2 years, 5 months, and a week or something like that. But yeah, basically just 2.5 years. It's just easier to call it 3. We spend most of the time 3 years apart on paper. So,
Yes.
but yeah, we grew up, with just not that many resources to use. We lived at after school for a long time. The after school on-site system, extended school program, ESP. Well, I haven't thought about that in a long time. It was local university students that were usually in some sort of a child education or something like that. They would come out and get experience doing after school on site at the school.
Oh, wow. Ours were just teachers or aides from the actual school that I think just, everybody took a shift.
I don't know if this was a legitimate school program, if it was something through the university or if somebody was pulling the strings behind that. But yeah, there'd be, and I'm just guessing here because I was a child and I didn't care, but there might have been 100 kids.
Oh.
And maybe 15 to 20. I mean, you'd see them as like staff.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It's a bigger operation.
So it wasn't just your school then?
No, that was at our school.
100 kids at your elementary school did it?
Yeah, it was on site. All right, somebody's got to drop in some updated information, or I need to go do some research, and we've got to find out.
Ours was like
there had to have been, but we were also talking K6, and it also tied into summer programs as well. It was like ESP they took care of everything that was after school that had to do with the kids. So if you got parents that are working until 5 or 6, then you might have 10, 15, I really can't think of how many, but the staff coming over and staying at the elementary school until 6 p.m. And maybe you paid 30, 40, 50 bucks a week or a month or whatever. And you didn't have to worry about transportation. They stayed at the school. I need to do some research into the logistics. I don't know if this was a local thing or if it was a movement, or it could have been like the principal put it together.
I'm just shocked that it was 100 kids. Like ours was also at the school. It was held in the gym, really, mostly. We would maybe go outside sometimes, but it was either the gym or outside. And there was like 20, 30 kids, maybe. It was not that many.
How long would it go?
I think it would be like a few hours after school.
Really?
As the cutoff. And it wasn't necessarily anything special. Like they did activities with us sometimes, but it wasn't like how you describe as like summer activities.
No, ours was organized.
Ours was like recess, kind of.
Oh,
really. It was like we were just doing fun activities. I did somehow get a nosebleed. My first and only ever nosebleed in life. I got an after school program. We were in the gym and I was like sliding around. So I don't remember exactly how I did it, but my face ran into like the bottom of one of those cafeteria tables.
Oof.
And I got a bloody nose.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to do some research. I've never thought about it, but it was definitely more organized than just extended recess. Like, I remember we had a period of time where they taught classes. I learned some sign language.
Oh.
We had art. They would, they obviously do still use the gym, but I mean, we had enough people going in there. They could set up full kickball games, and then there were other areas to do homework. And I need to look into it. And if anybody else was familiar with the extended school program with ESP, then would love to hear more about it, because now I'm scraping old child memories.
I wonder if our executive producer knows more.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. This is really interesting.
Anyway,
but yeah,
track.
I mean, before that, it was much more common. It was before that, wasn't it? I might be getting my dates messed up. We did have earlier just the babysitter. The mom would go pick up 5, 6, 7 kids in her van because she had a couple kids that were there already. We'd hang out for a couple hours. That was back in the day of early Power Rangers. And so we all would obsess over the Power Rangers. We'd get some kind of snack, and then we would just play until we got picked up. And I still remember that very fondly. It was a very fun time. But then after that, I was starting to get into... after that, we moved, and then it was just walk home.
With your brother, who would be otherwise too young.
yes, there were certain points. I remember there was a certain time that I was walking home myself. So maybe Jay was still and my little brother was still eligible for the extended school for a while. And I was walking home starting in middle school. For us, it was middle school, junior high. And then I would walk, maybe I wasn't eligible anymore at that point. So I was walking home, staying home. But there was a short season that I was coming home myself, and then Jay, my little brother, would come home later than that. But the memory's a little fuzzy at that point. And then I would say I got into high school and got a car, and then I was just driving, but I didn't get a car until my last 3 months of high school. Whole other long story there. But yeah, there was a lot of us growing up together, and there were plenty of me being the babysitter, but it was really just us getting to hang out with no supervision.
Yeah.
I'd say there were a lot of times if we weren't putting ourselves to bed, then it would just be the two of us doing something for a little while. I don't remember it ever being a long time either. Like it wasn't 3 days getting stuck into a hotel while Dad goes hunting. Although that wouldn't have surprised me. But even when we were in the summers with Dad, there would be full days, but it was with different family members. He'd go to work that day.
Did you ever have
with an aunt or a grandmother or uncle?
Did you ever have to provide meals for your brother?
Have to? No, we didn't really.
Like you were
have
alone
to
at dinner time.
Yeah, not really. I don't remember that. It could have been, but I don't remember that being the case.
Mm.
I think maybe we'd snack around a little bit, but we were kids. We could. We had infinite metabolism, so and we also had like 40 or 50 boxes of berry kicks chilling around, so we had plenty to snack on.
I don't know.
My grandmother, when she found out that we liked the food, she would start sending it until we cut her off. So I think it one way. I remember we would stack them in the kitchen. So the kitchen door opened up to the laundry room, and so we would just stack the cereal boxes behind the laundry room door because it always stayed open. And there's just this wall. We had more. It was Frosted Cheerios at one point in time, or we had more Frosted Cheerios than the factory did. Like it was
Whatever.
Wild. But yeah, those were fun times. I'm trying to think more. The question was about babysitting, right? I've
and
lost
just kind of having like being a caretaker to a younger sibling, in some way, shape, or form.
I think that our situation required it, because I mean, my parents both worked very hard, and they were doing what they could. They were really young when we showed up to begin with. I don't feel like we were ever left. There's being alone for a little while, but then there's being left alone, if that makes sense. It never felt like it was a long period. I do remember there's time that my mother was part of a band. They'd go out and do gigs, but babysitter would come over for that. That's a whole evening. That's you're getting put to bed. That's you need to take care of dinner. And then back then we were outside playing, especially in the summer when it didn't get dark until 8, 9, 10 o'clock. No, not 10. It was in East Tennessee. So 7, 8, 9 o'clock, we'd still be outside when Mom would leave for her gig. So babysitter comes over, hey, whoever's coming, and then poof, gone. So we weren't left really on that side. And all things considered, looking back at what they were doing to make ends meet, both my mother and my father, it's kind of amazing how much we were not left to our own. It was never any kind of extended period of time.
Interesting. Because I totally would leave my 12-year-old or something at home with whatever. And it's like, you guys, like, there's Spaghettios, there's this, or whatever. Figure out what you want. Go to bed at a reasonable time. Yeah, go to bed at a reasonable time.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I would have, at 12, I would have loved it. That would have been, that's the goal, is to start getting all of that independence. Right around 12, 13, 14, that's when I wanted as much of it as I could get.
I mean, I started being able to be by myself at least 5th grade, if not 4th grade. Because I distinctly remember walking home from school, in elementary school still. And I was able to be by myself. Now, granted, my older brother would have also been coming home at some point, usually, because he was in middle school. So maybe that was like, okay, she might be home for a little bit by herself, but her brother will be there soon or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I could ask my parents, but I was also a kind of more exceptionally responsible kid. There's some kids,
between us.
there's some kids that I feel like you can feel more comfortable leaving alone than others. And I think that I was probably one of the ones that you could feel more comfortable leaving alone.
Fair.
Because as my mom put it with my little brother, if his head wasn't attached, he'd probably lose it.
Mm-hmm.
So when he was younger, he would shoot.
Yeah, when he was younger. Definitely when he was younger.
So everybody has their strengths. And I was just a generally more adult type kid, a little more responsible, but.
So about these kids, I am wondering with Michael, they were talking about, the dark is never going to look the same to him, which is, a nice little gesture that you just hate that some of these things happen and they take our innocence. We never value it when we have it, and then we can never ever get it back. And then we realize how valuable it was. And
then you hear Dean say, if it means anything, I wish you could too.
Yeah.
That Sam could have that innocence back.
Which is ironic. Which is a bit ironic, because I think that I would say that Dean had more taken away from his childhood.
Yeah, but ultimately Dean is the ultimate self-sacrificer when it comes to his brother.
And that's the intrigue of like, was that a writer's room thing? We're like, hey, what if we had him say this? Like, you could wish that we all had it, but then he looks at his little brother and he doesn't even wish it for himself. He wishes his little brother had it.
I think that if he had the choice, he would wish that Sam had it and he didn't, because between the two of them, one of them should know so that they can protect the other.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so if Sam doesn't know, that's fine, because Dean does know and he can protect Sam. So I don't think Dean would actually want to be in the dark. I think Dean would want to continue to have had his innocence taken away from him in order to be able to protect his brother. And his brother, he would prefer him to remain innocent.
It is that it's that protection element as well. Mm-hmm. And that is probably in the same vein. I'm probably just calling it something different, but I can relate to that sense of watching out for. Now it's weird because my little brother and I we fought. It was a open war for 14 years, 13, somewhere 13, 14, right around. It was just war. We fought all the time.
Till you were like 16?
Yeah. I was 17 when we stopped fighting.
It's so strange that you have it like a stop, like, yep.
I still don't know what happened. I bet he would talk about the same thing. But yeah, we had just through the childhood portion, it was just all the time. It was fighting all the time. But that was the thing. Even during that time, no one else could mess. My brother, if we're going to fight, we're going to fight, but nobody else can mess with him. Because then there would be fisticuffs on the other side of that. And there wasn't too much of that. There were some scraps, but it was a bunch of boys in a low-income neighborhood that it just happens. But yeah, we hit. I still have never quite figured this one out, but we hit as soon as we got to high school together. My senior year was his freshman year. As soon as we got to high school together, we were good.
Do you think maybe part of it was having been separated in school for 3 years?
What do you mean?
Well, for 3 years, you were in a different school. You weren't around him all the time. Like, you weren't in the same school.
We were always in different schools.
Not in elementary school.
Yes, we were.
How?
Because we had this weird paradox thing happen. When I started coming up, and I love hearing him talk about it first. He's got so much pride with it. It's great. So when I went through, Ross was the name of the elementary school that I went through. It was K6. We moved to that town when I was in the first grade. So I did 1st through 6th grade at Ross. Jay would have started kindergarten at Ross. So I was the last class that did K through 6 at Ross because they were growing too large. They needed to build another school. So they built a primary school on property on the other side of the property. And that one was K through 3. And then you come up to Ross for 4, 5, and 6. So he was the first class to go K through 3 at the new primary school. I was the last class to go K through 6. He was the first class to do K through 3. So where we would have been at the same school in ancient year, we ended up at 2 different schools, and then by the time he moved up to the school that I was at, I had moved on to the next one, and then the next one was only 2 years. So there was a whole empty year without Browns at that school, bless their hearts. And then we were together in high school for 1 year. So our whole time, we only had 1 year.
Interesting.
Yeah, together.
Interesting. I mean, I only had with obviously my little brother, I was never at the same school, but with my older brother, we had a few years at elementary school together. And, it's just a random story that comes to mind, but I don't have a whole heck of a lot of my older brother took care of me things, but I do remember one time when I was in like 2nd grade and he was in 5th grade. Is that right? Yeah. I was really, really upset because I had forgotten my lunch at home. Like my mom had packed a lunch and I'd forgotten to bring it with me.
Forgot it?
Yeah, I just like left it on the counter or whatever.
Stephanie.
Oh my gosh. And I mean, that must have been a day that I was, 2nd grade, I guess I was able to walk to school by myself. I mean, I guess, how old is that? 7? I guess I was entrusted to be able to get myself up and get to school because otherwise I wouldn't have forgotten my lunch, right? My mom would have taken me to the before school program and made sure I had my lunch. But I must have been old enough and trusted enough to get up on my own and get to school, and I had forgotten my lunch. And I remember I was so upset. Like, I think it was not even necessarily that, like, I didn't have food. It was that I had kind of, like, screwed up. Like, I was ashamed or embarrassed. That's probably more what it was. I was embarrassed that I had forgotten my lunch. And they went and they got my older brother and, like, brought him into the mix. And he hadn't forgotten his lunch. And he shared his lunch with me. Like,
really?
I don't think we had lunch at the same time. But it was like, take what you want out of my lunch pail or whatever the heck. And so I got part of his lunch as...
Well,
and I guess that was instead of the solution for the school being, you'll just have some of the school lunch and we'll talk to your mom about paying for it. It was, let's go find your brother and have him give up some of his
lunch.
Yeah.
Test that out.
Or maybe they did offer that, but whatever the lunch was, I'm a very picky eater. And when I was younger, I was even more of a picky eater. It might have been something
more.
It might have been that whatever it was, they might have said, oh, well, you can have this. And I might have just been like crying, being like, I absolutely hate that. I cannot eat that. And like just being because there are definitely, I know that there were school lunches that like I would like, the thought of it makes me want to throw up type of a thing. So.
Wait, but not square pizza though.
No,
we're
of
going to
course
square
not pizza.
Okay.
Of course not pizza. But whatever it was, I was probably very against it. That might be the actual true version. They might have offered that, and then I was crying because I didn't like that, and so I wasn't gonna have any food. And so then they went and got my older brother and said, "Here." And I specifically remember taking the dessert.
That does sound like something you would do.
I didn't only take the dessert, but I did take the dessert.
I would so love to hear the other side of this story.
I don't wonder if he even remembers. I mean, for me, unfortunately, we tend to remember.
They're
bad things more than good things.
I was going to say obscure, but yeah, we'll go.
I don't want to call it traumatic because, like, let's be real, that's like
but 2nd grade traumatic.
Yeah, like exactly. It was very, very hard for 2nd grade Stephanie, and so I remember it, I think, more clearly than I would just like a random happy memory from 2nd grade.
Mm-hmm.
So he might not remember because for him it's just like, oh my god, just shut up and take my food. Like,
let me go back to algebra. Yeah. Well, but
we've really gotten off the rails here, but
no, I think it's actually
we're talking about our childhoods.
The thing is, they introduced the flashback,
yeah,
and they really built this entire episode about connecting us with the children of Sam and Dean. I think it's fitting that it kicks off.
We're talking about our childhood.
Flashbacks beget flashbacks. So we're gonna have a part 2 and a part 3 where we just tell more stories about what it was like to be children. But I mean, it creates the most random, obscure memories that we have. But again, that can still track over here. There's some things that happened that were incredibly important and defining that you don't remember just because it doesn't trigger in your brain. But then things that are absolutely ridiculously insignificant, but they hit your mind, your childlike brain, or your actual child brain, a certain way, and they become core memories.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It is wild how it happens, but then also, everybody who's around Dean is telling him to cut himself some slack, but he is taking what was an adult responsibility that was placed on him and holding himself adult accountable, and will not cut himself any room whatsoever, even though he was a child.
It's interesting too, because generally as adults, we look back at our younger selves when we've made mistakes or whatever, and we have empathy. I think most people are like, oh, but I was just a kid, you know? And you kind of like, I wish that I could help that kid. Like a lot of, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of people are able to do that. Be like, look, I was literally 10 years old. Like, I don't even, like, as an adult, making that decision, you know, is hard. But at 10 years old, like because you start seeing all these other little 10-year-olds and think, how in the world does that kid ever make a good decision?
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So you have more perspective on it. So you're not judging yourself as harshly. It's interesting because Dean, I think, sees his 10-year-old self as still an adult. Like, you were treated like an adult. You were given adult responsibilities. It doesn't matter that you're 10 years old. You're an adult. You know, like he doesn't see himself as a kid.
Right.
He sees himself as a soldier who just happened to be 10 years old.
Well, but you've got people who deal with, you know, a universal application here. You get plenty of people that really do just beat themselves up. They hold themselves to a level of accountability that is entirely impossible. You almost always see those people seeding this behavior back to childhood. You know, you may look at a situation and be like, yeah, but I was just a kid. There's no way I could have done that right. But these people that have this way, they were usually taught somehow, even accidentally, they were taught to do this way. And they don't look at themselves as I was a child. And the irony is that there's so many people now that in a healthy way, they'll look back at it and say, yeah, you can't really hold that person accountable. They didn't know better, whether or not they were a child. Even later in their life, like the shorter distance of the memory, they'll still cut themselves a break, because you get plenty of people that just cannot. And I've found, even in my own personal growth, that the more I can look back at myself, even last week, and just say, dude, you didn't know then what you know now. Cut yourself a little bit of room. You learn from the experience. So you're a better version of yourself now than you were then at that point where you made that mistake. So give yourself that space. It's fine. It's okay. You're okay. As you are now, you are okay. Sometimes we can do it to ourselves as children. But you see people that have a major traumatic event, like, you know, somebody died near them and they blame themselves for it somehow. You know, that's what Michael was doing whenever they went to approach him in the episode.
I'm supposed to protect him.
Exactly.
It's my responsibility.
And I should have checked that the window was latched.
He wouldn't have got pneumonia, which it wasn't pneumonia, obviously.
Exactly.
He wouldn't have got pneumonia if I had made sure the window was latched.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's easier to talk to a kid most of the time and say, hey, no, this isn't your fault, man. You're good. This is not your fault. But who knows what might have happened to him if they hadn't been able to do that, if they hadn't been able to check in and be like, okay, the jackass kid is still sitting on the step over there. If they'd left him alone at that point, you know, fast forward 20 years. There was another show that we were watching and somebody had something happen to her when she was 10? 10,
I think.
Okay.
Or seventh grade.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, 7th grade. And this woman was talking to her adult children and seeing, like, the inability to forgive yourself for the previous things can have this infinitely large counter effect or a counterpoint if you can't forgive yourself.
Yeah. I mean, this is why everybody should be in therapy, honestly.
100%.
Because even if you had a good childhood, like kind of picturesque childhood, there's still experiences, like, there's so many things. Like, I mean, even though it's not really trauma, but like forgetting my lunch, and I still remember that, you know, pretty clearly to this day. This is now, you know, how long that would have been, 7. So this is 30 years ago ish. And, I think it even speaks to little Stephanie at that point. Stephanie afraid to make a mistake. why is Stephanie afraid to make a mistake? Why is she embarrassed that she forgot a lunch? Who, like, as an adult, I still would, I forgot my computer when I went to work one day, and thankfully my Latvian cousin was in town, and on her way out of town, she brought me my computer, but I was so embarrassed.
Yes, you were.
As if, like, people don't just forget things sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
And I played it off with everybody else, but like, well, I'm having a great day because I barely forgot my brain at home too because I forgot my computer. I played it off, but I was still very embarrassed, you know? And you see that from literally 7-year-old Stephanie to current day Stephanie. Now, current day Stephanie isn't having a breakdown because she forgot her computer, because I have more perspective than that. But it does, you know, it lends itself to, regardless of how good your childhood is, things can still happen to you that shape who you are,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and sometimes those are things that create harmful habits or harmful protective measures or whatever, you know, and it's good to just work through them. And parenting and teaching, is we were just talking about this today, is a very difficult thing. What is good for one kid is harmful to another.
Well, and the irony is that this level of immaturity that makes this such a pivotal event in your life anyway is just simply doing its best. And so if it doesn't have guidance from somebody, either at that moment or later in life with a therapist, you end up creating incorrect coping mechanisms.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why generational trauma is a thing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that this is true, but what if then 7-year-old Stephanie, it became like an obsession to, you know, make sure that I never forgot anything ever. And so then that becomes you know, even if everybody's rushing out the door and if I have forgotten one little thing, it's not a big deal, but I'm holding everybody up now because I have to go and triple check to make sure that I haven't. And that's not actually true of me, but it could happen. You know, that embarrassing moment then catapults itself into overcorrection.
Yeah.
I don't know why I just said the word that way. Overcorrection. And so, yeah, I mean, everyone's just doing, teachers, parents, or whatever, by and large, they're just doing their very best. And sometimes their very best can unintentionally have consequences for a child.
Right.
Because what's good for one kid isn't necessarily good for another, you know? And so it's not like at all coming for any parents or teachers out there, like, you know, so grateful for all of the teachers, and well, most of them, some people are like, some teachers were like pedophiles and stuff, so but
Whoa, like, you went to the other end of the spectrum on that.
But
I was just gonna say bad teachers, but yeah, we'll go there.
well, they are bad teachers if they're pedophiles and they're coming after their children.
Mr. Jenkins in his gray van.
Yeah, but regardless, the point is, even with a great childhood, you can have instances that become for better or for worse, shape who you are.
Yeah. And
sometimes the ones that are for worse end up becoming unhealthy. Yeah. And so that's why it's important that we all go to therapy.
100%. I wish we had it. I wish we had a better program. I wish it was more socially acceptable.
Yeah.
It's gotten better.
Much better.
In this country.
Yes. Especially since the pandemic, I think it really kind of taken there's a bit of a shift in that. But yeah. Our generation, I think, has created that shift. I think there's a lot more millennials in therapy than Gen X would ever.
Oh, definitely.
I think our generation really started that kind of push of like, this is okay and it's healthy.
This is okay to do without going through a trauma first.
Yeah.
It's okay to just do for maintenance or for foundational. And
also, like, you know, trauma is probably an overused word, but sometimes you don't even know if you've experienced trauma. You know, like the example of the lady earlier, her trauma was that her dad was burning. They were moving, and they had too much stuff, so he made her hand him things of hers to burn, to get rid of.
She'd kept too many things, and
and I don't think that everybody necessarily would recognize as a trauma.
No,
you know,
and for some it might not have been.
Yeah,
and it just depends. Oh, but her issue is that she was a hoarder. Yeah, we skipped that part.
But regardless, like, I think some people would be like, well, yeah, that just happened. It sucked.
Mm-hmm.
But they wouldn't necessarily recognize, like, that really kind of fundamentally changed a lot of things about you. Right. You didn't even realize it, you know? So there's a lot of things that we might not even realize are traumas. That's why you talk to a therapist.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm debating in my head. I was like, we could run down this road
for another hour.
For so long.
Yeah.
For so long. But I think we're also not going to be able to help not going down this road with, I know at least on some of the Star Trek stuff, it's going to open up that door for us to be able to do, because one of the things about that show is that they try to imagine humanity continues to get better and better and better. And so you get concepts that end up being like social call-outs of a utopian future. We have figured this out, and this is what it looks like, and this is how it's different from now. Because we're nowhere close to a utopian way of life here.
Some might say we've gone backwards, but
it depends on who you talk to and what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
we will have plenty of time in future episodes, and I'm hoping that Supernatural will give us, especially as more character dynamics develop, as we get more and more Sam and Dean, because Dean's obviously got some shit that he needs to unpack. So it's one of my pending Supernatural questions is, are we going to get growth from Dean, or is he going to stay stuck in the situation? Sam seems to have a lot less just trauma in general. So I think at this moment, he's more primed to get married, have kids, settle down.
Yeah.
Which leads to
Let's say, do you have
my famous, my question time that I didn't even write down. Is John a negligent father?
Yes.
Good chat. Thanks everybody for stopping in.
Here's the thing. Sam said it in the episode with the bugs episode. And Sam said at the end of the episode that Dad was doing the best that he could.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he's going to give him a little bit of slack now, because he recognized it's a very difficult situation that he was in, and he was just doing the best he could. And I think that it's hard for me to say he's doing the best he could, because I think he certainly could have done a lot better. He could have treated his older son with a little bit more compassion.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, is it the best that John Winchester can do? Probably. He went through his own traumas, and he was in the military, and he doesn't have the tools that he would need. Now, granted, could he have gone to frickin' therapy and figured out how this was? Yes, but I don't think
he's a boomer, though.
Yeah.
They're not gonna.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that I agree with the way that John Winchester is. He's a culmination of his experiences, and that version of John Winchester was doing the best he could. Could he have done better? Abso-frickin-lutely. But that would have been a different version of John Winchester to be doing better. He would have been someone who talked to someone and figured out how to do better.
Right.
I don't think that John Winchester could figure out on his own how to do better. But I still think that he was negligent in a lot of ways, because he left his kids alone for 3 days at a time, and treated one of his sons like a drill sergeant, or he was.
Yeah.
That poor kid.
Like he was enlisted.
And
left them with friggin' Lucky Charms and Spaghettios.
Yeah.
No
fruits and vegetables here.
Shady as shit hotel. Did leave him the rifle, though, so that was responsible.
Shoot first and ask questions later. That's an important lesson.
Oh, and I want to have some more of John handing down, okay, we get where the Deanism comes from. It's such an easy thing to write in. I hope they do some more of that stuff. John looking at the TV and changing the channel and going, oh gosh, no chick flicks, and then changing the channel or something like that. It would be so funny. But I'm not sure if they're going to. But yeah, I'm curious to the future of tying this in, and also with more character dynamics. They're not going to get into, and I know that there are some characters that are coming that have enough of a repeat role to be considered part of the cast in some capacity. So we're going to see a lot more opportunities for this. I just hope that they take advantage of it. This is one of those things that made the show This Is Us, which is kind of what inspired us doing this, was that show. Is that they would plant a seed, and they would explain to us how Kevin was a certain way by explaining it from his dad, but then also going back to Jack Pearson's childhood as well, and showing how he got it from his from his father. And then the generational, and that was one of the great things about that show. What is such a great thing about that show is they go through such great lengths to explain the story to all kinds of, and bless Mandy Moore's heart. If anybody's listening to That Was Us, the rewatch podcast with Mandy Moore and Sterling K. Brown and also Chris Sullivan. If anybody's watching that, if you liked the show, this is just a juicy little bonus, where they rewatched the entire show. But Mandy Moore didn't realize how much she would end up doing generational changes all the time when they went back in time. Kevin, Kate, and Randall all got the day off.
Yeah.
Because they had different actors. But Mandy Moore was in every single bit. Yeah. In the older stuff, and the present stuff, and in the past stuff. And Milo was dead in the present stuff, so he got time off.
He was dead in the present stuff and dead in the teenage stuff as well. And the future.
Yeah, parts of it. That was when he passed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Mandy was in the early stuff, in the middle stuff, and in the older stuff, which is just amazing. But
she literally only got the day off if it was
Milo flashbacks,
or there was a very, one episode of, Little Rebecca.
Yeah, you're right.
And now there was a couple episodes, I think, maybe, that it was, focused only on Randall and his family. So, she would have gotten the day off, the day off of that. But it was very rare.
There were some that were Kate. There were some that were Randall. They did. She did actually get some time off. But any of the period adjustments, she didn't necessarily get done.
She definitely worked more days than any other actor on that show.
Yes.
If Kevin worked 700 days, she worked 1,000. Type of thing.
Yeah.
So,
which is weird that you're probably pretty accurate, actually, the season that had that long of a run. But either way, and I hope that they do take the opportunity now that they have gone into flashbacks territory. They're willing to go deeper to tell the story, which I'm really hoping Prediction Corner is a sign of the future of the show. I hope that they dig far enough into the story to do that kind of stuff, because I would like to see where John Winchester got it. I would like to see why he is a man that holds the principles that you learn in the military to such high regard. I know plenty of people that serve that got out and they do not run their house like a unit.
Mm-hmm.
There are some that got out and they're like, yeah, that was the thing that I did. That's it. It's done. And then other people that they're in their 80s and they're still walking around with the hat on that shows where they served. So how did John become this way? Are they going to give us that, or are we just going to have to take these assumptions and just be like, okay, well, he's a military guy. He's always military. That's it.
I honestly can't remember whether or not they confirmed this or not in the show, but hazard a guess, John Winchester feels like he's at war right now versus all of these supernatural things, and specifically the thing that killed his wife.
Damn, was he like that before his wife was married? Mary? Before Mary was murdered. Ooh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's going to be some fun stuff. I need to actually keep a list. Maybe we should incorporate it in the podcast page as we get there in the future.
Things to confirm or deny.
Yeah, Jeff's Prediction Corner. It's got 3 columns: yet to be answered, was right, and what the hell was he thinking?
Well, you got the Wisconsin part about right.
I got Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin. You predicted that this episode would take place in Madison, Wisconsin. Now you were off with the Madison bit, but Wisconsin, I think I count that as a.
I'll take the bit. I'll take it.
I'll take the full points on that one.
Right now, I got the credit for getting it right. That column is sparse these days. 18 episodes in, I think I should have a few more things in that category.
Do you have anything else on your list?
I've got a couple things, but we didn't really get to some of those areas. I really like the LexisNexis stuff, so I have
no idea what that is.
What? Really?
Yeah.
It was, man, I was such an early internet nerd. I have a feeling you lived in it, but you didn't camp there.
I was there for email and AOL online chatting and
oh boy,
stuff like that.
No, I grabbed every tool I could get my hands on. I had a GeoCities page, I had a tripod page. I didn't have ICQ. Mom wouldn't let me have ICQ, but MSN, Trinity, All of that. I was heavily into
I know of like 3 of the things that you said. You also are 3 years older than me, so
Yeah, negligible at that state, though. I bet you had a computer before I did.
probably.
You were way late to that game.
Yeah, I think my dad might have even brought one home from work or something.
90.
Oh yeah.
No, 94.
Way earlier. I'm pretty sure there's a photo of me sitting on Adam, my older brother's back while he's on the computer, like laying on the floor. The computer's sitting on the floor in our living room, family room, actually, for your purposes, our family room. And he's laying there, and I'm like straddling his back, but that must mean I'm like little enough to be straddling my older brother's back. That's probably like 3 or 4 or something, as opposed to 97. I would have been almost 10.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I remember when we got it for Christmas. An uncle, technically a great uncle, but Michael, you've met Michael, had built one, and so he built it for us for Christmas. Man, I was so excited. But anyway, the Lexus Nexus, that was a nice little fun flashback. It was like Google, if in the 90s, if Google and a library had mixed. It was like the Library of Congress. So it was more about finding literature, not so much about finding the score from the Braves game.
speaking of flashbacks, I just want to give a shout out to the early aughts jeans, bootcut jeans that are too long.
You noticed that too?
That are too long for you, so they tread underneath the heels of your shoes, and then they get little strings of jean parts falling apart.
Absolutely.
So, like, shout out to the wardrobe department for, like, actually creating that effect, because I don't really know that Jared, who plays Sam, walked around in that specific pair of jeans enough to have created the shredded bits of jean at the bottom that had been shredded.
It became part of the trend, too.
Oh, yeah, to have that.
It became part of it.
Yeah, you would, like, encourage, like, as it starts wearing down, you would, like, rip it.
Yeah, you'd break it in the back so the strings would rip out more. And I think that's what led us to the ripped jean phase as well. So if you had the strings down there and you put them a few more places, then it's even better. So yeah, anyway, I was thinking about going down memory lane and just listing off like, gosh, there's Alta Vista, and I guess I named off a bunch of them already with ICQ, which I never realized until I just read it on this list. ICQ was the name of the chat platform. The letters I, C, and Q. But it was more, I don't want to say adult-centric. It sounds like porn in that case, and it definitely wasn't. But it had more of that flirtatious element to it. Like, people would use it to talk, like adults would use it to talk. Not as necessarily like MSN or AOL as like friends chatting, especially in school. But if you say ICQ really fast, then it actually has the message in there. I never realized that until just now. ICQ.
Oh. I've never even heard of that. So.
Okay, well, I'm just going to move on then. I did, gosh, what else was in that list? Netscape Navigator, Angel Fire, Tripod, GeoCities.
You say the 3 years is not that big of a gap. I would argue that a three-year age gap in the early years is much bigger than it is now.
No, I agree with you there.
So, Tyke 97, for example, rounded out, 10 and 13 years old.
Yeah.
Those are a big difference.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
But, in this case, I'm talking more specifically about the exposure to technology. Up until the 7th grade, well, I'd say it was probably until 9th grade, I was severely limited to technology, and there was a little bit of it that I wanted it because it was so far out. We were paying for one phone line. Mm-hmm. So we were sharing the phone line with everybody. The internet side of it was. Mm-hmm. And so I had restrictions. My mom had the AOL restrictions turned on. I only had an hour a day that I would get kicked after that. And so, the ability to embrace technology was just very different.
Did you have it in school? Computers?
We did, but it was mostly Oregon Trail and typing classes. There wasn't a whole lot else.
Good old Oregon Trail.
You can still play it now. You can play it online for free. It's amazing.
I think it would stress me out too much.
I want the original, though. I don't want all these new gen.
I think it would stress me out too much because I was always like, you can pick all of the right things, but then your people are still dying of dysentery,
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you just get some random disease and you're just dead.
But that's the life lesson that you have to take about what life was like on the Oregon Trail.
I know.
Is that you can shoot in 8 directions only, and you can only carry home so much meat. And somebody might still die of dysentery.
Yeah, you're a doctor, but you can't even help the dysentery. You get a lot of money so you can buy all the supplies, but then you can't hunt because you're not a hunter. It's stressful, man.
So I do want to segue into something production, something in the industry to start getting some notes. So I'm going to do so with the first thing that I noticed as soon as this episode started. How did somebody in wardrobe miss this and make the striga look exactly like whatever? How did they do this where nobody looked at this design of this creature and said, that looks exactly like Darth Sidious from Star Wars?
Wait, when did Darth Sidious...
Darth Sidious, and this is why I said Sidious and not Palpatine. Palpatine was from the movies from the 70s and the 80s. Sidious was who eventually became, but during the original trilogy, which was being released at this time.
But when did it come out?
Star Wars Episode 1 was 99. Episode 2 was 2003. And I want to say Episode 3 was 2005. Those are my official guess. I'm probably wrong on a bit of it, but it's very close. And this episode came out, you see it, April 19th of 2006. This was high peak of the Darth Sidious run.
Well, probably because when you look up striga online, you get that.
Really?
Yes. They made it look like...
You get Sith Lords. That looks more like an old witchy woman. The picture that you're showing me right now. I keep forgetting that you can't see. It does have the cloak.
It has the cloak and like the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now look up Darth Sidious.
You do that.
It's probably in my history. Darth Sidious.
I mean, there's another. Yeah, or maybe Star Wars made Darth Sidious off of strigas. Just saying, it's a possibility.
Well, then Supernatural should have printed it first.
Or maybe, I mean, they didn't start in 1999. Maybe in the wardrobe, maybe either the writer, the director, Eric Kripke, somebody in the wardrobe meeting in pre-production was like, I want this person to look super scary. Like, think Darth Sidious vibes. And so that is what is born. Because they do, in those meetings, in those pre-production meetings, a lot of, depending on who the director or writer, whoever it is, if they're really heavily into references, then they will definitely make references. Like, think so-and-so meets so-and-so. Like, some groovy references or whatever. And that oftentimes is very helpful to a wardrobe designer or a makeup person or production designer, depending on what it is that you're talking about, whether it's a character or a place. But that is very common to have references to other things, other previously made things. It doesn't mean that you're going to have it be like, okay, I want you to make this exactly, but I wouldn't say that the striga was exactly Darth Sidious either. It definitely had the vibes of it, so maybe that was the note. I want this to look similar to that. I wanted that kind of vibe.
Well, on that note, I am going to go ahead and accept my 10 points because episode 2 was released May 16th of 2002, so I was right on that. And then episode 3 was released May 19th, 2005.
Okay.
Number 1 was correct. Number 2, 11 months before this episode released.
Yes, and I've already said that maybe that was the note.
Yeah, I'm still docking 2 points.
No.
2.
I make no points docked for it because a striga is a real piece of folklore that can be looked up online, and when you do, it has similar vibes to that. And B,
sure,
a lot of things are stealing from other things.
Sure.
So who cares? Get over it.
Well, I'm still calling it out. And then the Latin we could do, short. This is probably pretty easy. But this whole episode, one of the elements was they were going with the wind. Mm-hmm. And I noticed the wind was a strong element In some points, there was absolutely zero wind, but there were a lot of moments where the wind was just pretty heavy. Obviously, all the tree branches. But then I noticed a few times when they were doing the establishing shot. So, like, here's the outside of a building that we're about to be inside, air quotes. We're going to be inside this building in just a second. Like, you had a bit of brush, but then a couple of bags that were blowing as well. I was like, okay, it looks like things were added to this to make the wind blowing more visible.
Maybe, and probably. My only question is whether or not they got a bunch of big old fans to create that wind, or if they just...
That was my next question.
Were able to find a day that it was windy and they just shot a bunch of different stuff. Because all of those windy things, like the establishing shots, were all of the hotel. So it's possible that they just got all of them on the same day. They all looked like the same day.
No. The opening scene.
Nope, that was just the tree branches outside, which could have just been someone... Yeah, which could have just been someone, like, shaking the tree branch. Which is actually almost certainly that's exactly what it was. I don't think they would rely on the actual natural wind for that.
I thought they gave us an outside... No, you're absolutely right. Because I remember cringing when the outside of the house was blue.
Okay, we can talk about that.
It was later. I would have noticed the blue house from the opening scene if they had done the establishing shot first, but you're absolutely right. They did not. Yep. So it's typical. They'll just do whatever. Sometimes they'll have enough wind that they don't need the machines.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes they'll do it with machines.
It's just whether or not that they specifically want. I mean, it seems like it would make sense because they always wanted those tree branches hitting the windows, that they wanted it to be an establishing shot with wind in it. So they might have gotten lucky, or they might have been like, get a crap ton of big old industrial fans and bring them and blow them. It's
that easy. There's not a specifically we use the Sennheiser 6800X model.
Oh, I don't know.
In the industry. Okay.
We'd have to talk to special effects about that.
Okay. So it's clearly not common enough that you're familiar with this.
Yeah, I've worked on very few things where they wanted to add wind.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Wind in that way. Like, you can make it look like it's windy by moving a tree branch outside of a window, but that you don't need fans for that. You can just have actually, funny enough, on one of the shows I worked on, if we're shooting in this particular character's house, just people in a room talking to each other, nothing crazy going on, just people talking to each other, we have to have special effects on so that they can be outside the windows moving the fake tree branches, making it look like, there's something going on. Not like a big windstorm, just like little bit of movement.
Was this the one that I saw?
You saw that house, yes. It's the main character's house.
It was fake tree branches in front of a picture, like the painting backdrop of the neighborhood.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And so there's like little tree branches outside this window, and so you have a special effects person on just to like wiggle the tree branch. I'm not kidding you. I always thought that was crazy.
I'm in the wrong career.
Like, honestly, like, it makes sense. Like, it's their job and they're there to do it.
Yeah.
But it's just like, really? We need special effects today? Because they have
they
have to wiggle a tree branch that's in the deep background of this.
And we're talking only a wiggle of like an inch or two.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's too distracting.
Yeah, we're not trying to make it look like a windstorm. Just like that it is actual a live tree branch that might wiggle every once in a while because there's wind or a squirrel jumps on it.
I'm just seeing him, like, I went to school for 4 years for this. He's just sitting there wiggling.
Actually, a lot of people in the industry didn't go to school at all, but...
Oh, well, that's a follow-up conversation.
Yeah.
Well, what else do you have? I know you don't have a list, but...
I mean, the jeans was my big thing I needed to, like, break... Right, yeah. I loved the episode. I've always loved this episode. Although I will say that when Sam is getting the soul sucked out of him, or whatever it is that he's being sucked out of, he got like this like werewolf face going on. I've always thought his face looked really freaking weird during that moment.
Werewolf?
Yeah, like it just looks like he's transforming into a werewolf. Like his face no longer looks strictly human.
Interesting.
I've always thought that. I'm always like, oh my god, his face looks so freaking weird. Like, since the beginning, I've always been like, oh, what is going on with his face?
I didn't catch that. I was actually going to compliment. I mean, they didn't really have they didn't have a lot of effects.
Yeah.
That would have eaten up a budget or timing.
It's true.
Like, they really just had that element, which was probably only that shot, too. The other,
glowing mouth.
The other Sidious's in the past probably just had a mouthpiece in.
I don't know.
With light, because there wasn't anything special going on with it. It just lit up.
No idea if they did it practically or visual effect.
That would be my guess, because I was paying attention to it a little bit, is that they just had a mouthpiece that would light up at a certain point, or maybe even like remote or something. But then for the interaction with Sam on the floor, there was actually, obviously some effects going on with that.
Yeah, 100%.
Favorite, least favorite? Where are you at?
Favorite? I think I'm going to throw to Dean's line after he kills the striga and saves Sam. You okay, little brother? I don't know, it melts my little heart. It's just like, it just melts my little heart. I love that. Least favorite? I bumped a little bit on early in the episode when they're trying to figure out why it is that Dad sent them here, and Sam was like, "You see this playground? It's 4:00. It's after school. This place should be crawling with kids." I was like, "Really? Should it be? Or maybe like they're home and they're not there?"
And they just showed us that the population of the town is 20,000, and a playground in town square.
That's not even that good of a playground. It just had like a
It was this little. It wasn't even an igloo. What the hell was that?
It was just like a what are they? Not a is it a climbing gym?
Jungle gym. That's what I always call it.
A very standard
but
jungle
it was
gym.
a bad one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to play on.
Yeah, it was not a fun. If it had been a really cool park, sure. But I'm like, basically the only thing that was there, I think there was a swing and there was like this kind of jungle gym like mountain thingy
and a bunch of benches for the parents to sit at.
Like it was
4:00 in town square in a town of 20,000 people. Why are there not 800 kids playing on this?
Now I get it, like they wanted to move the story
we
forward.
Need it.
Yeah, but I was just like, okay.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So that's, I think, I'm going to go with my least favorite, even though I get it and I understand it. I'm not coming here for the writers, or I'm not coming after the writers. It's just, I was just like, okay, whatever, dude. It's like, it seems like there could have been another way that, they discovered it, but, whatever.
Maybe they were just already out there and they just had that little area over there and like just bring in the equipment, just set it up, make it look like it's a playground.
I don't think so. I think that jungle gym was probably convenient to another location that they shot at, is my guess.
Okay, interesting. Well, favorite, obviously, Jeffrey Dean Morgan in the episode.
Okay, but you have to start another favorite too.
Yeah, I did mark down another favorite. Okay. But actually getting some real Dean background. This is what I was bitching about at the beginning. I wanted some Dean true legitimate backstory, and on this one they popped out the DVD, they flipped it over to the other side, and they showed us the early chapters. So I was happy about that. It was nice.
That's my honorable mention, the first flashback episode.
I hope that we get, now that they've given us a taste, I'm wondering if these kids are going to be recurring, like young Sam, young Dean is going to be a recurring thing, or if it's just always, anytime they do flashbacks, assuming they're going to do more of them, are they going to always be jumping around to different places? Are we going to see little toddler Dean walking around at some point, and this is when he learned how to shoot, stuff like that?
Well, it's not going to be toddler Dean learning how to shoot because he was 4 when the whole thing happened, but I understand what you're saying. And I don't care how you feel about spoilers. I'm just warning you right now, it's not going to become This Is Us. Where it's just like a constant,
I know. I'm not that lucky. No, that would be great. But I think there's a lot of possibilities here. But I'm looking forward to that part. But I did really like they gave us a glimpse into the Dean box, which we haven't had a whole lot of. So that was really nice. Least favorite. Oh yeah, the playground. That was your least favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it did feel a little formulaic to me. If I was able to predict what the next scene was going to be, then there's a little bit of a formulaic. So I'll just do a ding for that. But I'll say this: it's a hot take. So I didn't. There's something about Michael that I just wasn't digging on. I don't know. It's the kid, the actor. Maybe it was the two queens joke. It just hasn't aged all that well in the meantime. I'm not sure. But he kind of came across like a little shit to me.
He was being kind of a little shit.
Yeah, well, didn't like that. He's messing with my boy Dean.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then also at the end of it, he sees spirit thing, whatever, that nearly killed him. A bunch of guys with guns come in, and the next day he's like, cool. Yeah, we didn't really do anything. We just hung out. Oh, and go see my brother? All right, cool. I'm still totally normal.
I mean,
Peace.
I don't know. Kids surprise you, honestly, and sometimes how they react and how they respond to things. And he has been shouldered with more responsibility than the average kid.
Sure.
So I think it's believable. I don't think that every kid will react that way, but I think that it's believable for his character.
You know, it's one of the things that Trek does, and I would love to see them do this, but I would not be at all disappointed if they didn't. Is like 6, 7, 8 seasons later, have adult Michael show up, and he has been taking this ball that they left him with, and he's been running with it, and he actually hunts now too. And he finally bumps, they end up back up in Wisconsin for something, and he's there. They get to a job at the same time or something. He's like, you guys don't probably remember me, but a few years ago, you showed me a striga. A striga. And I researched that. I researched evil Sith Lords, decided that I need to hunt them. That would be cool. That would be so cool if they did something like that in the future. And I'm intentionally not looking at your face. Just don't even. No spoilers.
All right, well.
But that would be cool.
At least you're not mad at Google this time. All right. Predicted corner.
Predictions corner.
Next episode.
Yeah, I'm
Providence.
Screwed.
Well, do you know what Providences are?
The capital of Rhode Island.
No, that's Providence.
Oh, shit.
Which is hilarious because Dean makes the same mistake in the episode.
Put one in my column. That counts as a prediction.
Provenance. Do you know what a provenance is?
I do not.
Okay. Well, you're going to find out. This is something that you're going to be able to take forward with you in life and probably never have to use again. But I now know what provenances are because of Supernatural. So if anybody would ever say that to me, I'd be like, I know what that is.
Going into my Jeopardy list. Okay. Okay. So then I will go ahead and put this next episode in Rhode Island, just because. And I still have to think of something, don't I?
It's hard because you don't even know what the word means.
No idea. Provenance will be some sort of like ability. You kind of like someone that gets the shine, or the psychics get an ability. They can see things. So provenance is an ability to feel spirits around you.
Okay.
Whether visible or not, you can see them.
Okay.
And in Rhode Island, there is a 19-year-old girl who is at a lobster boil, and she has some provenance.
Okay. Jay, do you like this prediction? Jay specific requested.
That's where I'm at.
It's a good episode though. I do enjoy it. And then the next one after that, Dead Man's Blood is that was a really, 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 really good one. Plus, it has an actor that I've worked with before in the episode.
Of course.
So I'm excited to see him, and we'll get there when we get there, I guess.
And also, I mean, we're starting to get pretty close to the end of the season.
I know.
We're getting close to the end of this first season. That's crazy.
I think we're gonna have
Go
to.
for fifth.
We're gonna have to record with Jay and Christy by going to at season 2, episode 1, and then just waiting forever to post it because we have to record with them.
We are planning, and if somebody's still in at this point, we're like an hour and a half in already. So if they're still in, then they're gonna want to hear this anyway. But we've talked about doing a break between the end of Supernatural season 1 and beginning with Star Trek, of doing some sidebars, some middle ground stuff, like debriefing the first season, talking to you about, what do you think is going to be coming with Star Trek, actually revealing what we're going to be doing with the Trek stuff, like where are we going to begin? Because there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of different options. If you look up, like, how should I watch Star Trek, there's a lot of different ways to do it. And the worst way to do it is to start at the beginning. And then, debriefing, like, the entire season. Actually talking about the whole season. What's coming up with the next few seasons.
What does that have to do with what I said?
Huh?
What does it have to do with what I said?
It doesn't.
Okay.
I was just talking in general, like, this is what's coming. We're hitting the end of the season, and then, we're not going to jump from the last episode of the first season into the first episode of Trek. We're going to spend a little time just parked and enjoying what so far has been a very, very powerful first season for a show.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to spend some time talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want me to say something about shooting the first episode of season 2 with the executive producer?
No, not necessarily, but I just thought you were expanding.
You thought I was tying that back around.
Yeah, but instead you completely went in a different direction.
Well, I thought I had the direction clarified, but either way, that's it. Anything else?
Well, think so.
Cool.
So next episode is Provenance.
Next episode is Provenance.
I think we only have like 3 episodes left.
Yeah, I think 123 is the last one.
Yeah.
Yep.
So 19, 20, so 4 episodes. 4, 5.
Yeah, there'll be 5 more.
Wow.
Outstanding.
And they used to do a lot more episodes of TV, guys, back in the old.
I know 23 1-hour episodes is a lot.
And now you're like 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Or 12.
Yeah.
And even network TV is like 18.
Yep.
18.
That's going to be one of those things that
20 maybe.
We'll talk about. Cool. Well, then I guess we'll go figure out what in the world of Provenance is.
And just remember, driver picks the music.
And shotgun shuts his cake off.
Woo!
Okay, bye.
Cheers.